The Twili. They are the people of the Twilight realm that were sealed away long ago, after committing a huge crime against the people of Hyrule. They are seen as evil people, creatures of darkness, and in Twilight Princess they even attack Hyrule. But history is always written by the victors, and it wasn't actually the fault of the Twilight or their ancestors. It was something else. They were mere puppets of something way darker and way more powerful. We have seen it multiple times throughout the game, even used it. Its magic is dark, and they couldn't control it. It all started long ago, when the ancestors of the Twilight tried to conquer the Sacred Realm to take the Triforce for themselves. A tribe of sorcerers, the interlopers, were most likely among the combatants of the Hyrulean Civil War, in which many races fought amongst themselves to establish dominion over the Sacred Realm and the Triforce. Using the dark powers of the Fused Shadow, the interlopers tried to establish dominion over the Sacred Realm, but they were stopped. As a punishment, the Golden Goddesses sealed them away in the Twilight Realm and split the Fused Shadow, the source of their evil magic, into 4 separate shards. At the same time, the other races that fought in the Hyrulean Civil War settled the dispute in a seemingly peaceful manner, and the interlopers would eventually evolve into the Twilight. But is there more to this than we think? Is there something else in play here? Well, let's first take a look at the artifact that they used. The Fused Shadow. It is the physical manifestation of extremely powerful shadow magic created by the interlopers and was also used by them. This power was sealed away by the light spirits. While the Fused Shadow must be made whole again in order to unleash its full power, its pieces appear to hold significant amount of power on their own, as they can curse individuals and transform them into monsters. For example, the boss from the Forest Temple. It is a giant 3-headed Dekubaba corrupted by Twilight that has taken over the temple. It used to be a normal Dekubaba, but after coming into contact with only one piece of the Fused Shadow, it turned into a horrible monster. But this isn't the only example, there's more. Just listen to this story of the Gorons. We have a treasure that was entrusted to us by the spirits, and we must protect it. Do you understand? But the moment Darbus reached out and touched the treasure, everything went wrong. He collapsed, and before our very eyes transformed into an unspeakable monster. He began to rage through the mines, trailing ruin behind him, and the eruptions grew more frequent and more severe. We used all of our strength to seal him deep inside the mountain. It grieved us to do this to our patriarch, but we had no other course of action. When Link arrives at the entrance to the mines and beats one of the Goron elders in a sumo wrestling match, the Gorons recognize his strength and ask him to enter the mine complex and free Darbus from his possession. Link successfully completes this task and retrieves the second Fused Shadow for Midna. Darbus only touched it, and in a matter of seconds it corrupted his mind and transformed him into an evil monster. Are you also starting to see the pattern here? Everybody who ever touched any piece of the Fused Shadow turned completely evil. Could this have been the case with the interlopers? Could they have turned evil because of the dark magic that they started to mess with?
Well, it could be that they started to experiment with magic and that they accidentally created the Fused Shadow. And as soon as it was created, they came into contact with it and it corrupted their mind. The same thing happened to everyone else that touched it. But why doesn't it corrupt Link and Midna? They don't change into evil monsters, they just stay the same. But why? Well, it's hinted at in the game that Link has the Triforce of Courage, since Ganondorf also has the Triforce of Power. So it could be that the Triforce of Courage stops the Twilight from taking over Link and corrupting his mind. Well, there is a clue for this at the end of the game. Midna learns that the Triforce of Power, Ganondorf's third of the power of the goddesses, is still stronger than the Fused Shadow, as she is defeated after challenging Ganondorf. Afterwards, he emerges victorious, holding up the shard Midna had worn throughout the game and shattering it. So this confirms that the Triforce has more power than the Fused Shadow. But what about Midna? Well, she has lived in the Twilight Realm for years. She is already completely corrupted. The only thing that isn't is her mind. She and her people aren't really evil anymore. It could be that they mastered the dark magic of the Twilight in time, and now it doesn't influence them anymore. Well, Midna at least, since we can see that Zant still corrupted the other Twilight, but maybe Midna was also cursed and turned into her smaller form, so it depends. But why did they even mess around with such powerful dark magic? Why would they even come close to it? They must have known that it would be stronger than them. Well, for this, we will take a look at the Twilight Realm since it will provide us with answers. The realm is home to the Twilight race and is ruled by a king or queen. The realm is lighted and protected by the sacred souls, orbs containing the power of light.
Apparently it has gods of its own. When the light of the souls enters the Master Sword, Midna says it's because the gods of the realm have blessed it. Twilight gods? Interesting. The realm is covered with an abyss of twilight, and has black buildings everywhere that seem to float above nothing despite a clear presence of gravity, giving another hint of advanced magic.
However, this may be the magic of the interlopers put to a better use. Despite the fact that there seems to be many buildings within the realm, the only one Link is able to visit in-game is the Palace of Twilight. So they have gods of their own? Maybe the Twilight magic has two sides, one good and one evil, a bit like the triforce, which can be used for good but also for evil. When the interlopers started to experiment with the Twilight magic, they probably ended up using the dark side of the magic, and this turned into the fused shadow. But there's also a good side to it, and we see this in the Twilight realm.
The souls that power everything. Midna says the following about it. That shining sphere illuminates this world. It's called a soul. It's like the sun of your world, Link. The power of the soul's the source of life in this world. It's pure power.
It's super advanced magic which allows all kinds of wondrous things like moving platforms and probably the floating buildings. The souls also hold the power to transform shadow beasts back into their original Twilight forms.
But we also see the dark side of it. The shadow beasts, for example, that attack on command and just straight up kill people. We see this in the cutscene where Zant attacks Hyrule Castle with his army of shadow creatures. They storm in and swiftly take out all the soldiers and kill them or choke them. They are completely brainwashed by the dark side of the Twilight magic. So it's some sort of a double-edged sword, with a sharp dark side and a kind good side. But the Hylians didn't know about this. They just saw the results of what happened, which is that they tried to take the Triforce. So they wrote that down in the history books, and the interlopers were seen as 100% evil and were sealed away for good. But it doesn't have to be that simple. We know that the Twilight magic has the power to corrupt the most pure. And the fused shadow is also not the only artifact with this power, since the Mirror of Twilight has a similar effect. For example, the boss Blizzetta is created when Yetta, in possession of one of the Mirror of Twilight shards, becomes corrupt by its effects, and begins controlling the frost around her to attack Link. Or for example, Armagoma, the giant tarantula with a single eyeball encased in an armored exoskeleton. Armagoma's true form is a small spider with an eyeball design on its abdomen, so it changed from a small, harmless spider into a monster. The mirror was created by the golden goddesses Din, Nehru, and Feyror, to banish the interlopers to the Twilight Realm for attempting to establish dominion over the Triforce using dark magic. The golden goddesses could control this dangerous magic since they are extremely powerful. But anyone who is not extremely skilled in magic or very powerful becomes corrupted and completely loses their mind. And you need to be extremely good in magic, since even Yetta, who excels at frost magic, became possessed. So the interlopers were probably experimenting with the Twilight magic and ended up creating the fused shadow. The dark magic instantly took over their mind, and so it all began. The battle for the Triforce, and it all started because of the fused shadow. This is not something new in the world of Zelda. Just look at Majora's Mask and the Skull Kid. This was a similar scenario. So is it really their fault? Or was there more behind this than meets the eye? Well, it could be, but we will never really know what happened during the creation of the fused shadow. Maybe they intended to take the Triforce and use the fused shadow, or maybe it wasn't their plan at all. Maybe it was the fused shadow, after all, slowly corrupting them from the inside. Welcome to the end of the video, everybody! Great that you watched the entire video. Don't forget to check out Game Over Jesse, since he helped me out with the voiceover. He has some really cool videos. Just go to his channel, upper right corner now. Upper right corner, there it goes, yes. just click there. And if you want to watch more of my videos, then just click the annotation on the screen right now, or just check out my channel and subscribe.